you have inspired so many students, including me. You have set the example for what one can achieve in life. Who has inspired you? Who you were my beacon? Who were you? Who were your beacons? Did you have anybody that you looked to or that were guideposts along the way?
In terms of inspiration in life, there were several figures that influenced me. Chief among them were my parents, who invested constantly in their three sons. Yesterday, I was working with a tribal project for the Cowlitz Indian tribe of southwestern Washington, and I needed a reference work. And I went to the shelf, and there were the 39 volumes of Western histories written by Hubert Howe Bancroft and published in the 19th century. I have that marvelous set of 39 volumes, beautifully bound in leather, because my mom and dad bought them for me. They invested in library resources, in my education, and in travel experiences that were highly formative. There were some other influences as well. My grandfather, Beckham's first cousin, Mary Lancaster Young, was quite inspirational to me in my teenage years. She was a school teacher who lived at Coos Bay, who'd earned a master's degree in marine biology. And she was my mentor in doing field biology studies, both in botany and in intertidal organisms in the coastal zone of Oregon. She had a great zest for life. I called her Aunt Mary, but she was really my grandfather's double first cousin, but highly influential. There were also special teachers. Dr. William T. McLean, who had a PhD from Stanford, was my high school history teacher my senior year. He invested a lot of confidence in me and got me involved in youth and government and other programs as a high school student. In college, my undergraduate advisor at Bingham at the University of Oregon was a charismatic teacher. He greatly influenced me through the seminars in history that I took in the University of Oregon Honors College. And those seminars, which were limited to 12 to 15 students, he taught in his home. So once a week in the evenings, I would go to the Binghams, and we talked about a book every week. This was called the Colloquium in History. It was a program that I loved so much that I took it, I think, 2 or 3 different terms because it was so inspirational. And I loved the encounters with the books I was reading. And in graduate school, my mentor, Dr. John Walton Coy, was really a great example. John was then in his senior years at UCLA. He had taught some 20 PhD students before me. I was next to the last of those that he nurtured through a doctoral program. He constantly exemplified the values that I believed in. He asked of himself what he asked of his students. And that asking included a lot of reach beyond campus. So in the 1950s, John had served as the expert witness in the Tidelands oil litigation between the federal government and the state of California, particularly over the oil resources of the Santa Barbara Channel. While I was at UCLA in the 1960s, he was the expert witness in a 7-city lawsuit over the ownership of the water resources of the Los Angeles River. And he was drawing upon research in Mexico and Spain to document the early water usages and understandings that were related to the lands in the Los Angeles basin. Those were important lessons for me in seeing how he could use his skills as a historian in the public arena. Also, he was a man of considerable principle. In 1952, the regents of the University of California had imposed a loyalty oath on university professors. He said, I'm loyal. I'm only a Democrat, and I refuse to take an oath that where I have to swear that I'm not a member of the Communist Party. So John was among the professors who refused to take the loyalty oath. And though he was a tenured professor of more than 25 years, he was fired by the regents. During the 2 years that he could not have a campus office, he continued to edit the Pacific Historical Review, and he taught his graduate students who came to his home in nearby Brentwood in West Los Angeles. He wrote some remarkable accounts of the loyalty oath controversy. One of them was a book called Their Majesties the Mob that ran from the vigilantes of the California Gold Rush to the regents of the University of California in the 1950s. He did another volume called In Clear and Present Danger, where he addressed the issue of civil liberties in America. And then there was a remarkable essay in Harper's Magazine called A University in Jeopardy. These were things that I was aware of and I read when I was a student. And they really helped focus my energies during the issues of the Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement, the student protests of the 1960s, and the nascent environmental movement that came in the latter part of the 20th century. So John Coy was a great influence on me. His wife, Laree, was also important. I found weekend work as their gardener, helping cut fire trails around their beautiful home in the hills west of campus in Brentwood, California. And at noontime, I would come up to the house, and Laree was my literary editor. She would say to me, now, Stephen, let's talk about words. Use although to begin a sentence. Use though within. Avoid the word despite. Write in spite of. It sounds better, and so on. So she was a wonderful stylist. She'd edited her husband's works, and she edited my master's thesis and my PhD dissertation. She helped me become a writer. So these are some examples of people of inspiration that influenced my life.